Welcome. What's the Tea Tuesday? We're so excited to have you here with us again. Today, this week, we are going to be talking about sustainability, what you can do at home or back at school once we return to Harper College, what ways we can all be more sustainable. So I'm Erin Graff. I am the manager for student involvement.
And I'm Melanie Duhai. I'm the Secretary for Student Involvement and the Administrative Assistant to the Dean of Students. We have two guests joining us today, and we'll let them introduce themselves.
Well, hi, I'll go first. My name is Amy Vetter, and I'm Harper's Campus Sustainability Manager. So what in the world does that mean? So that is basically I work on campus to reduce environmental impact and make sure that we are going green as a community. So on campus, I do some data collection and greenhouse gas reporting. I work on energy efficiency projects in facilities management, do a lot with waste and recycling on campus. Also education and outreach, so hosting events, partnering with different groups on campus to bring sustainable elements into events and things like that.
And I'm Nellie Khalil. I am a faculty member in the biology department. So I end up teaching a lot of the kind of environmentally themed courses like the plant science course or organismal biology. And I'm also one of the co-advisors for Environmental Club this year. So we've been doing a lot of interesting things as a club and hope to resume again in the fall on campus.
Perfect. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. As Erin said, we're talking about sustainability. So to begin, let's talk about the holiday this week. Earth Day is celebrating 50 years on April 22nd, so tomorrow. Amy, could you talk to us a little bit about Earth Day and what it means, what it's for?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, 50 years. So that's a really exciting milestone for Earth Day. So it started in 1970, and really the whole idea about and behind Earth Day was to really take a moment to kind of forget about all the crazy stuff that's happening kind of in the world and in society, and really like bring our attention back to the planet that we live on, and just to have one day a year that we can really focus and remember that the planet is really all what brings us together, and so keeping that healthy and clean is good for really everybody involved. And so Earth Day was started 50 years ago to really just have one day to focus and bring our attention back onto all the great things that the Earth does provide for us. So every year on April 22nd is the official Earth Day. It's celebrated around the world in all kinds of various different ways. But it's been a great way to bring everybody together.
Great, Amy, thanks for explaining that to us. You know, a buzzword has really been sustainability, but for someone who might not understand what that really encompasses, can you explain to us what is sustainability? What does it mean? And what are the steps in being sustainable?
Yeah, for sure. So sustainability, I know it is kind of like this buzzword. A lot of people are maybe more familiar with the idea of going green. You may have heard a little bit more about that, but sustainability is really all about resources. So how I like to explain it is we all need resources to live. So things like food and water, electricity, clothing, building materials. So all of these resources, they come from the earth, from the planet. And so we need these all to live. And so sustainability is a way to think about how we use these resources in a smart way so that we aren't wasting them and are only using what we need so they last for a really long time. So kind of a really easy little definition of sustainability to help you remember is enough for all forever. So you can plug any resource into that equation, and we'll make sure, so in the case of, say, electricity, we want to make sure we're using electricity in such a way that there's enough of it for all of us to power our gadgets forever. So really, it's all about resource use and how we can use those in a smart way. And one of the coolest things about sustainability is it definitely helps the planet's health, which is kind of the biggest thing that people tend to think about when we think about going green. But some of the other cool effects of having a sustainable lifestyle or making some of these habit changes are that it has the potential to save money, which is really positive and really great. And it also increases the health of ourselves. So when we think about things like healthy air quality and healthy clean water, that makes our bodies healthy as well.
Great, thank
Excellent.
you.
Well, students and staff and faculty are all celebrating Earth Week away from Harper this year. What are 3 tips each of you have for how we can remain sustainable in our homes or other places of residence?
Well, I think one of the things that I would start with, actually, I think it's a perfect opportunity to reflect on things like consumption and waste at the moment. I think, some of our environmental problems are tied to the large amount of waste generation that we have. And recycling definitely is one way that we can stem that waste generation, but definitely reducing our usage of non-essential things, I think, helps as well. So kind of being cognizant of that. I've been talking to a lot of folks who have been using this opportunity to plant plants outside, either in their yards or bringing things indoors. Some people have been growing vegetables this time of year, so there's some self-sustainability there in terms of growing your own food. And then I have to think a little bit about the third one, but those are 2 that kind of come to mind right away. I mean, meat consumption would be another one, limiting your meat consumption. A lot of people I know have been doing meatless Mondays, but if you reduce your meat consumption to maybe once per week, meat consumption has a big impact on the environment, huge impact on the environment. So reducing that can also help too.
Yeah, so those are some great ways to get involved. Another couple of things that come to mind while we are at home is one. There's a lot of stuff you can do to especially reduce waste in the kitchen. So maybe a practical idea, which is one that saves money in addition to helping the environment, would be trying to reduce paper towel usage. So it sounds kind of like a simple thing, but if you have a old cloth or towel or something else, or even like an old t-shirt, you can rip it up and it can work as a nice cleaning towel. That's a way to reduce waste, our impact on the planet. It'll save money because you won't have to go to the grocery store as often to get more paper towels, and you can use materials that you have right there at home. So that's just kind of a little tip. Another one actually that we might not think about while we're at home, but is definitely still an option and a good thing to do this Earth Week is drink out of a reusable water bottle. So a lot of times we think about this as more of like an on-the-go kind of situation, but it definitely applies at home. So the good news also is it can help reduce your dishwashing. I know we're all probably doing a little bit more of that eating at home, but refilling a reusable bottle or just reusing the same cup all day can really be a great way to reduce your impact a little bit. And thirdly, I'd say now that it's finally spring and we're getting some sunshine, see what you can and challenge yourself to not turn on the lights. I think it can be kind of a fun challenge to walk into a room and open up the blinds and see how long you can go without turning on the electricity. It kind of sounds silly, but I think you'll be surprised by how much natural light you find comes in at home through those windows and how much we can actually utilize that free sunlight rather than paying for electricity.
Yeah, Amy, I think to go off of that, one of the things that I did at my house, we got our ComEd bill and it shows us kind of where we are in comparison to our neighbors. And one of our goals in our household was to be lower than the rest of our neighbors. So it was little things that we could do that we could just be a little bit more efficient with our energy at home. And then we had that data in front of us that really showed us you're not as efficient as your neighbors are. So what is it things that we could do to improve that? So that was a helpful tool that we just used and that was provided to us by ComEd. But it really, challenged us to be like, in what ways can we probably turn off more lights and be more efficient with the energy that we are using?
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's fun.
So going a little bit more into sustainability, Amy, as the college sustainability manager, can you share with us some of the college's initiatives on sustainability and how students can support these efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started a pretty cool composting program on campus pretty recently. And so that it all happens right on site. We have 3 pretty big compost bins on the east side of campus. So every week we have offices that are involved with collecting compost scraps from lunch and things like that and bringing them to the centralized location, and we're turning that compost into a usable material that can be put back onto our campus grounds. So we're going to be looking at expanding composting right here on campus in the fall so that we can have some more participation from our students and start to have collection bins perhaps in the cafeteria or by Starbucks, things like that, to help us reduce our food waste going to the landfill.
So what happens to that compost? So we're collecting it, but then what do we do with it?
Yeah, so it takes a while to break down. So we've actually finally got a pretty good pile going. And so it turns, for several months, it takes for that food waste to really turn back into a soil kind of material. And so what it is, it acts as a soil amendment. So we can keep it right here on campus and we can put it back into the campus flower beds or some of our potted plants all around campus to act as a fertilizer to help those plants continue to grow. So it's an ongoing cycle, so we'll always be getting stuff in and then we'll always be able to take stuff out once it's in full production.
Wonderful.
Very cool. It sounds like a great initiative. Nellie, as the advisor of the Environmental Club, what are some activities that the Environmental Club does and how could other students get involved?
So we started back up this year after a year hiatus. So part of it was just getting club members back together. But some of the activities we've carried out is we've gone out to our Craig Stettner Prairie on campus and basically walked around to take a look at plants and animals and identify what we've seen. Our goal was for the spring to actually go out and do some collection. A lot of litter, unfortunately, that gets released in the parking lots on campus end up blowing into our prairie. And so the students wanted to go in and collect that and remove some of the invasive species that grow in our prairie as well. In the spring, an invasive species in this region that grows pretty heartily is something called garlic mustard. And it's pretty easy to pull out of the ground early on. So hopefully some of the students are doing this at home or doing this on their walks in nature preserves. We had also, one of our students was very excited about hosting a virtual session with Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. And so initially, that was an event planned for this week during Earth Week, but we've decided to postpone it for the fall. So people can look out in their emails and inboxes for the fall event where we'll have a virtual one-on-one conference with Paul Watson and talk about a lot of his work, especially with ocean conservation. And he also worked, one of the original founders of Greenpeace as well. And trying to think of, well, I will say that while people have been at home, folks have been sharing pictures that they have of plants that they've been growing. I know Amy will talk about this in a little bit, but some of the students are very excited to participate in some of the Earth Week challenges that are part of Harper's Earth Week as well.
Excellent. Yes, that event for this spring sounded so cool. I'm glad you guys have rescheduled. Perfect. Now, Amy, I know recycling has been a bit of a source of confusion for a lot of people. What can you tell us about the number code on the bottom of plastic materials, or what can be recycled or what can't that we think might be able to be recycled?
Yeah, recycling is an ongoing challenge, and it's hard because there's all kinds of different materials out there, and everything kind of has its own little set of rules. So I think the biggest tips to remember is number one, make the materials that can be recycled in a general sense are plastic bottles and metal cans, so such as pop cans, also cardboard and paper. So those are kind of the biggest categories of items that can be recycled. The one thing, as you mentioned, the kind of number symbol on those containers, if it's plastic or if it's styrofoam, it'll have the number 6. So definitely look out for number 6s. That means it's a styrofoam type material, and those are not accepted in our normal recycling at home or on campus. And why that is just because it doesn't break down like the other plastic, so it doesn't mix, and the processing can't be done at the recycle facility. So definitely a couple of just other tips to remember are make sure the container is empty, make sure it's clean, and make sure it's dry. So you have a bottle that's maybe half full of pop that you didn't finish, make sure you dump it out first before you put it in the recycle container. Make sure another tip that they have is make sure it's bigger than a credit card. So this is kind of maybe a newer tip people might have heard, but items that are too small, that are smaller than a credit card kind of size, they don't make their way through the sorting equipment, so they don't end up getting recycled. So make sure, yeah, they're bigger than a credit card, they are empty, clean, and dry, and they're one of those main kinds of materials, the bottles, cans, boxes, or paper. Some kind of good tips to get started. There are actually, I think we'll talk about this in a second, there is a resource page linked to on the virtual Earth Week documents that take you through this really great website. It's called recyclingsimplified.com, and it's sent out through Harper's Waste Hauler, and it has all those great tips, very easy to understand, and it really does simplify the process. So take a look at that. And there's also a really cool virtual field trip to take, and it goes through a recycling facility, and it shows all the sorting equipment, how this stuff gets processed. So it helps you understand, why are some materials accepted and why some aren't. So I checked that out.
Great, thanks for sharing that resource and those tips. So obviously, I think that we have a lot of students who are interested in sustainability and environmental science. What advice do you guys have for students who are interested in pursuing careers like yours?
I think in this region, there's a lot of great opportunities for students who are interested in environmental science to get involved. And so, really get involved, I think is the starting point. Definitely at Harper, we offer a number of classes that are focused in environmental science. So a colleague of mine, Crystal Pierce, teaches an environmental biology lab class, and they actually get outside and collect a lot of data that would be very similar to people who work in the field of environmental science, so it's good exposure that way. Of course, students can get involved in our environmental club. For students who live in Cook County, the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, they're always looking for volunteers to help participate in habitat restorations where they remove invasive species or they will plant native plants in the region. So again, that's another great way to get involved. And I've had a lot of students in the past that's kind of how they got their foot in the door. The Chicago area as a whole has kind of a network of environmental clubs and organizations that fall under the banner of something called Chicago Wilderness. So if folks are really interested in finding out more opportunities and organizations that they can get involved in the region, they can go to the Chicago Wilderness website, and they're kind of sorted by region and also by the work that these organizations do as well.
Yeah, so just one quick thing. I think one of the coolest things about sustainability is that it's able to weave its way through really any discipline that somebody might be interested in, which is pretty fun. So for example, you don't have to be in environmental science specifically and do the outdoor kind of stuff. You don't have to go into being a sustainability manager like I am, but it can be just a part of, for example, like green architecture. So building buildings that are really energy efficient, or interior design and using recycled materials, or even if you're interested in being a lawyer, you know, there's environmental law or policy. So there's a lot of different ways to incorporate ideas of sustainability really into any career field, which is pretty exciting.
I love that. Thank you both for that. And I know that one of the great things that, you know, in my job, when we talk about things that we can do within our position, with working with events on campus and supporting students, one of the biggest things that we looked at was how can we make our own events on campus more sustainable? When you're hosting events for 300 or 400 students at a time, there can be a lot of waste involved in that. And we, I think what was really exciting was learning more about sustainability on campus and how we could incorporate that into what we do. And so you're absolutely right, Amy. There's where there's a will, there's a way. And I think that your passions can, if you have a passion within a specific field, you can still incorporate sustainability into what you do.
Exactly. I would totally agree. And I actually took an environmental biology course in college. So that's how I got into, I enjoy planting and growing vegetables and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what got me into that, is just a hobby, even instead of, you know, a full line of work. So I think those are all really great ideas. Thank you. Now I know between the two of you, you guys are collaborating a lot this week for with other departments for activities for students to do about Earth Day. Would you like to explain some of those activities? What do we have going on?
Yeah, sure. So Earth Week started officially yesterday, and it runs all week, so through the 24th. And so some of the highlights, I already mentioned the recycling. So we're challenging our campus users to become recycling experts while we're at home. So check out some of those tips. And so there's also the Earth Week photo exhibit. I think, Melanie, you mentioned this earlier too. And so this is something, again, that we do every year, but we moved virtual this time. So there's a link to the virtual Earth exhibit directly from this Earth Week document, but it's also on Harper College social media channels. So take a look, and we just wanted to share photos from around the world that are Earth themed. So whether it's a landscape or buildings in our environment or different animals, we wanted to have an opportunity to just share some of the cool things that people see around the world, and those are taken all by our campus community. There's also a Hug a Tree challenge. So sounds kind of goofy, but we are looking for all you tree huggers out there. So find a tree and give it a big old hug and upload your photo to the Harper Wellness Instagram channel or email it to our wellness manager for a chance to win some wellness swag. There's also some tips on there about planting. So not everybody is a gardener, myself included, but house plants are a great way to green your living space and really feel good about where you are and breathe some life and clean air into that living space. So there's some tips about how to get started there. So there's a bunch of different resources, a few other things that you can take some time to explore yourself, but I believe we'll be sharing that link through some of those student involvement social media channels.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to link that in our comments of our post. So if you want to, you can check it out there.
If you guys don't mind, I'm actually going to share the flyer that Amy's group, the sustainability, Amy's office really has worked a lot on. These were a lot of the events that she had mentioned. So those are available as well for students who want to get access to that flyer.
Yeah, thank you, Nellie. That's perfect.
Thank you. So as we wrap things up, I do want to end things on a positive note. I know that with us being quarantined, that a lot of people have kind of looked at the negative things that are associated with that. And as we're physically distancing, we can still socially connect with one another. But can we talk about some of the benefits that this has had for our environment? I've seen a lot of different things about how we've actually in quarantining had some really great positive things that are happening for animals in our planet and overall our carbon footprint. So can you speak to that at all?
Do you want to take it now? Or do you want to?
I guess I've only seen things anecdotally. As a scientist, I'm kind of looking for like, where's the data and the reporting on the numbers, but definitely seeing stories about animals reappearing in areas where we thought that they had been lost for quite some time. Definitely hearing stories about air pollution and seeing maps of air pollution in industrial areas decreasing during this time as well. In some of our waterways, the water pollution levels have gone down as people have been not out as much. A lot of our water pollution actually doesn't originate in the water, it originates on land and then runs off into the waterways. So as people have kind of been staying at home a little more, that's really helped some of our aquatic habitats.
Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been some really positive things in nature that we've been seeing. And I also would say that a lot, like one of the most coolest things to do right now is to take a walk outside. And so I think I'm hoping that we can keep that going long after we all can, resume our usual normal. So staying close to home, taking those walks outside, really appreciating nature. And I think this, again, being spring and flowers are budding, it's fun to really take a second and enjoy the little things. Like, how often do you really notice how the flowers come up out of the ground, or how the flowering trees are all in bloom right now and they're gorgeous? So I challenge everybody to really just try to keep these habits going. Take a walk in your neighborhood and just enjoy those little things that nature has to share.
Definitely, I agree 100%. Now's the time to really brush up on learning your native plants and animals. There's a lot of free online resources and a lot of free apps to help you. I know, for example, Cornell has a really great bird identification app called Merlin. I'm hearing birds more than anything else nowadays. So those would be great opportunities to get outside and kind of learn about the flora and fauna around you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us for What's the Tea Tuesdays. We're so excited to be talking about sustainability and connecting our students with the things that they can do to make their own lives a little bit more sustainable and refocus on our planet and our earth and themselves as we celebrate Earth Day tomorrow. And if students have questions, we encourage you to post them in the comments. We'll follow up with you. And considering joining Environmental Club. It's a fantastic club on campus and a great way to give back on campus and within our community.
Actually, what I'm going to do, let me share something real quick for folks who are interested in Environmental Club. So they can email me at nkalo1@harpercollege.edu, and I'll put them on the email list. While we're all at home, we are still meeting as a club on Thursdays at 2 p.m. on Zoom. So if you send me an email, I can send you a link for how to join our meetings. And then the club has an Instagram page, which you can access at HC Environmental Club. And you can keep up to date on what the club is doing as well.
I love it.
Perfect.
Well, great. that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you back here next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, ladies.